Hey folks, this is Vince with Dad's Gaming Addiction, and today we're going to take a very quick look at the game Beat the Parents. This game is for 2 or more players, ages 6 and up, and the average play time is about 30 minutes. In this game, parents will take one side of the board while the kids take the other side of the board, and it'll be a race to see who can answer the most trivia questions and get their pawns from one side of the board to the other before the other team does. Let's just take a quick moment to look at the components and see how the game is played. Now, as far as the components are concerned, you have one game board. One side is representative of the parents, which is red, and one side is representative of the kids, which is yellow. And to go along with that, you've got 2 pawns of each color. Again, red being representative of the parents, and yellow being representative of the kids. Now over here on the left-hand side, you've got this trivia card deck, and basically these question cards are two-ended, meaning that the questions on one end of the card are geared more toward the kids, whereas the questions on the other side of the card are geared more toward the parents. Finally, you have these 2 decks here. There's wild cards for the kids and wild cards for the parents. And just like the question cards or trivia cards, they're two-ended. Whenever the kids land on their own wild spaces, again, the kids' colors are yellow. So if their pawns land on the yellow spaces, they would pick up this yellow card and follow the kids' side, and usually that has them going forward in some way. However, if the red pawns or the parents' pawns land on the yellow spaces, they would draw a yellow card, and this usually sets them back in some way. Same thing with these parent wild cards. If the parents happen to land their red pawns on their own red wild spaces here, they would simply draw from the red deck, the red wild card deck, and usually that serves to benefit them in some way. However, if the yellow pawns that belong to the kids land on the red spaces, this usually sets them back in some way. Now the goal of this game is pretty simple. Both of the pawns on both sides start on the 2 starting locations, or the 2 starting spaces. And the objective of the game is to get your pawns from one side of the board over to the other side, where the other team is going to be trying to do the same thing. The first team that manages to bring their pawns to the other side of the board wins the game. Now, player turns in this game are pretty easy. In fact, there are no player turns. The kids will work as one team, and they'll take a collective turn, and then the parents will go ahead, work as a team, and take one collective turn, and that'll go back and forth between both teams. Now, at the beginning of the game, the kids always go first, so we'll use them as an example for this particular turn. Let's just go ahead and draw a card. The parents will go ahead and draw a card and read off the first question listed under the kids section of the trivia card. In this case, true or false, pineapples grow on trees. And let's just say they get that question right and they say false. So they get to move one of their pawns forward 1 space. Now, it's important to note that had the kids gotten that first question wrong, they would not be able to move that pawn and their turn would end. But however, because they got that question right, the parents will go ahead and read the second question on the card. And let's just assume for the moment that they got that one right. They would get to move that same pawn forward another space. And because they got that question right, the parents will go ahead and read the third and final question listed on the card. And let's just assume that they got that right as well. They would get to move a third and final time the same pawn forward another space. At most, your team can move that pawn a total of 3 spaces. If at any point they get a question wrong, they will not be permitted to move that pawn and their turn will end. Now, because this particular team in this example landed on a wild space, they'll get to draw the yellow card. And because it's the kids' turn, it's a yellow pawn on a yellow space, the kids will get to read off the kids' section of their yellow card and follow the instructions. In this case, they get to move forward 2 spaces. So they're going to go ahead and move that up to here. Now that the kids' turn is over, the parents will go ahead and take their turn. The kids will go ahead and pick up a trivia card, look at the parent side of it, and read off the first question. In this case, the kids will ask the parents who wrote the music to Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. And let's say that in my infinite wisdom I know that to be Mozart. So let's just go ahead then and move one of these pawns up one space. And because the parents got that question right, the kids would go ahead and read off the second question. Again, just like with the kids, had the parents gotten this wrong, they would not be able to move their pawn forward and their turn would end. In this case, however, they got the question right, so the kids will need to read the second question. Let's just assume that they got that right, and let's just assume that they got the third question right after that. And because they got all three questions right and landed on one of these wild spaces, they get to draw a wild card off the red deck and follow the parent instructions. In this case, it's allowing them to move forward one space. So the parents are going to go ahead and move up one space. And again, at most they can move 3 spaces on their turn. They got all 3 correct, so they got to move all 3 spaces. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Both sides will be going back and forth, trying to get their pawns over to the other side of the board, while yellow pawns are going to be trying to do the same thing. Now before I sign off, I just wanted to quickly note or touch on a mechanic called bumping. And eventually, throughout the game, these pawns are going to be meeting head-on like these two are. And whenever a pawn lands on top of another pawn, it pushes that pawn backward 2 spaces. Let's just say, again, as an example, these two are here, and it was yellow's turn, and they got a question correct, and they moved up 1. The red pawn would then have to move back. Pretty simple. And there you have it. This is just a very quick look at the game Beat the Parents. Nothing fancy, but it should give you a general idea as to how the game is played. You can check out my review at www.dadsgamingaddiction.com, or you can simply click on the link in the below description. That'll take you there as well. This is Vince. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.